After delays, Congress finally passes a Sandy aid bill today, the small one, but why did it take so long? And next, Gabby Giffords visits Newtown, offering solace to a wounded town. The victim of one mass shooting offers hope to the victims of another. We'll tell you what legislation is being worked on right now to try to ensure another Tucson or Newtown doesn't happen again. And later, it was just over 7 months ago when Rutgers student Darun Ravi was sentenced to 30 days in jail by a New Jersey judge for spying on his former roommate's tryst with another man. That judge hasn't spoken out about his controversial decision until now. We'll have the exclusive FiOS One interview. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in again tonight for Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday evening, January 4th. For victims of Hurricane Sandy here in our region looking to Washington for help, what a difference a couple of days makes. Tuesday night, in the moments after the fiscal cliff bill passed, House Speaker John Boehner pulled a bill that would have provided $61 billion in aid for Sandy victims, breaking a deal he had made with lawmakers and denying them a chance to vote. Their reaction?
On this vote, the yeas are 354, the nays are 67, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Well, the vote today on a much smaller $9 billion bill designed to bolster FEMA's flood insurance program and get money out to flood victims. And the sound, as you heard in the House, was much different as that bill passed, though it still passed with 60 members opposed, or more than 60 members voting no. Every member of Congress from our region, though, voted yes. All those no votes came from Republicans who complained that any spending should be paid for or offset with other spending cuts. Today's $9 billion bill is still $51 billion below what lawmakers have been asking for as part of the total Sandy aid package on Tuesday. A vote on that remaining cash is now set for January 15th. Today's vote got the attention of Governors Christie and Cuomo. In a joint statement, the governors called today's bill, quote, a necessary and critical first step, but noted it was just a down payment, adding, quote, we are trusting Congress to pass the final $51 billion instrumental for long-term recovery. Well, let's bring in our panel tonight. Michael Tobman is a political consultant and a former advisor to Senator Chuck Schumer. He's now a principal at Hudson TG. Welcome. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, with us as always. And Jessica Proud returns tonight, Republican strategist and vice president at NLO Strategies. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Biggest surprise of this week when it comes to Sandy aid, the decision to pull the bill on Tuesday, the quick turnaround on the vote today, the fact that 60-plus members voted no today. What surprised you, Michael?
That it happened at all, that they pulled it and they didn't address this right away. There couldn't have been a clearer signal that moderate Republicans like Pete King in Long Island and like some of our Connecticut delegation and other regional members don't have the clout to get things done with this speaker and these far-right Republicans in the House. They should have gotten what they needed to go back to their districts and say, see, no matter what you hear is just rhetoric, we can deliver, they do care about our region. And they weren't able to do that.
Jessica, did Republicans gain anything by pulling the bill Tuesday and delaying the vote until today?
No, I think it was actually a huge PR blunder for them to do that on top of, their position with the fiscal cliff. But if you look at who voted against it, it largely was a regional issue with most Republicans from the South voting against the bill, many of them in coastal areas that could be faced with the same problem down the road. So I think the whole process itself needs to be looked at of how we're delivering this aid. It was wrought with pork, and there were some issues, and I think that were compounded by the fact that the president and Harry Reid have not been willing to really come to the table on spending cuts, which exacerbated the whole problem. So, I think the vocalness of Republicans like Michael Grimm and Pete King coming out so strong, so fast, definitely helped them turn the table on it.
I wonder if this was also a way to take a shot at Governor Christie, that he wasn't able to get from Republicans. If this was about a moderate New Jersey Republican being criticized by a far-right Southern and Midwestern House saying, if you think this was bad, wait until you see what happens if you get into presidential primaries.
Andrew, to answer your question directly, neither surprised me. The fact that they didn't put it up for a vote, because I really believe that there's an anti-New York bias in Congress. It's been there for a very long time, a sentiment that, they spend all the money, when nothing could be further from the truth. The state generates a lot of money for the entire country. So that didn't surprise me, and it also didn't surprise me that they turned around like that and passed it, because once you put pressure, the type of pressure that was put on the Speaker and on these members of Congress, they had no other choice but to turn around and do the right thing.
Do you agree with Jessica that if we hadn't been in this climate of everybody talking about budget cuts or reading and Obama?
That scares me. It scares me terribly, because there's a sentiment in Washington, mostly 99% from Republicans, that says, and it's just not the American way anymore. It says that before we'll budget anything, they put it in a nice way. Before we'll pay for anything, before we'll budget for anything, you got to pay for it. So does that mean that every disaster has to be paid for in advance? And half of these folks that didn't approve it in the vote, these are folks that let the same thing happen in their backyard, and let's see what they do.
Somehow I have a feeling their votes would be a little bit different. January 15th is the vote on the remaining $51 billion that our region has been asking for. Anything from this week give you pause to make you think that that funding could be in trouble come the 15th, or do you think that's going to pass with the same ease that today's $9 billion passed?
I think there's definitely potential for some. I mean, it's Washington, right? So anything could happen.
If they're doing it incrementally, maybe we don't see the 51 billion. Maybe we see another 10 or 20, and then another 15, and then they round out the rest.
And I think part of the problem too is you have some of these conservative groups that are holding some of these members' feet to the fire, saying there's going to be a retribution down the road if you don't do, some revisions to fix some of those pork items that are in the bill, and they're very aggressive about it, which I think leaves a lot of them, hesitant to vote for the bill.
Michael, what you just said alarmed me, only because if it's done in piecemeal, then it could theoretically be held hostage the same way.
Every time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could wind. Do you think we're going to wind up seeing?
You're going to get every dime. You're going to get every dime of that $60 billion, and here's why. Because of Cuomo and because of Christie. They're not going to tolerate. The moment that Congress tries any shenanigan, they're going to make sure the public is aware of it, and there'll be a public outcry. You're going to get every dime of that money, but it will be held up. It's not going to be here's $51 billion. It's going to be, here's 10, here's 15. We'll pay as we go.
I agree with some of that. I think it's because it's Cuomo and Christie that they're going to do it incrementally and not just give them everything they want.
Fair point.
And shockingly, President Obama has been totally silent on the issue. He has not weighed in on this at all recently. So
interesting. We've been hearing from so many local lawmakers. You're absolutely right. President Obama really hasn't talked about it that much.
He issued a statement. I mean, you can't blame the president on this. These are the Republicans in Congress, period.
All right, fair enough. We're going to take a quick break here on RFL. When we come back, we're going to bring you back to Newtown, Connecticut, a wounded city that welcomed a kindred spirit today. Former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, a victim of another mass shooting. She offered what she could to the people of Newtown today. That story and what efforts are underway in Washington when it comes to trying to stem gun violence next.